Alrighty, so one of the things I try to do is I try to give you guys unbiased thoughts on all products that I review and look at. Now, last week I released sort of like my first review of the Mavic 3. And I said in that review, I crashed that drone, but I had another drone sitting at the shop. This is that drone. This is the Mavic 3 Cine version. And well, I've flown this all of 3 times. And in the 3 times I've flown it, I've now grounded it officially. I'm not going to fly it anymore, and I'm going to go back to using my standard version because this has an issue. And we're going to talk about the problem that this has because maybe you're experiencing the same problem, weren't aware of it, or maybe DJI is aware and they have a firmware fix to correct the problem that I have with this unit. Let's get started. What's good, everybody? Ken here. You're watching OriginaldoBo. Today, we're going to talk about my biggest issue that I have with this brand new Mavic 3 Cine. Here's the deal. If I'm going to be hard on companies like X Dynamics and Autel for horizon tilt and transmission issues, then I'm going to be equally as hard on the company that has all but perfected drones in general, and that's DJI. So what's the issue that I'm having with the Mavic 3? And it is horizon tilt. And you're probably saying to yourself, well, all drones have some form of horizon tilt. Yes and no. So with that being said, here's some clips of just how bad this horizon tilt actually is. So in all of those clips, I want to talk about what I did to try to rectify this prior to taking off. Prior to taking off, I did a auto calibration of the gimbal, thinking that auto calibrating it would fix it. And sometimes it seemed to help, and then sometimes it didn't seem to help. I tried manual calibration, but manual calibration didn't work either. And the reason why is because on this particular horizon tilt, the horizon starts out level when you take off and it looks great. The minute you start yawing left or yawing right, it's like the gimbal cannot keep up. It's almost like the gimbal is drifting, and because it's moving, manual calibration just won't work in the same capacity that it does with the Evo 2 Pro. See, the Evo 2 Pro, you know the horizon's going to be crooked and you're not moving. That's easy to calibrate for because it's a static horizon tilt. But with this, when your horizon's crooked, you don't know it until it's actually happening, and it gets really bad when yawing and pitching to the left or right. Like anytime you move your stick inputs left or right, it gets even worse. So that's a huge problem. So then I came back to the studio and I decided I would do an IMU calibration, let it cool down, fire it back up, do a IMU calibration. IMU calibration passed, and then I went ahead and took off again here and started doing the same movement, basically parallaxing left or right. Same situation. The horizon was losing itself almost immediately. I brought it down and landed, and I said, how can I fix this? This is driving me crazy and it's costing me shots. So I decided that I would do a firmware refresh. I looked to see if there was any new firmware available. There's no new firmware available for this drone. It's on the most current version of firmware listed down below. So I decided I was going to do a firmware refresh, which is basically taking that current version of firmware and just reinstalling it on top of the firmware that's already on the drone. Did that, took it back up again, and the same issue. The gimbal just was not able to keep up with the drone, and we were getting these really bad horizon tilt issues. So with all things said, the only other move I have is to try to reach out to my distributor that we get these units from and see if they can send me another unit, because when comparing this horizon tilt issue to my friend Ron's Mavic 3 Cine, side by side flying at the same location, same conditions, same settings, other than he was not in D-Log and I was, his Cine was not experiencing the same issue. I was able to fly the building with his drone and not have any problems. I was able to fly the lake without any issues with his drone. So it's not a one-to-one thing. Maybe some of the units are having the problem and some of the units are not. It's really going to be luck of the draw. But if you are experiencing horizon tilt, I suggest that you do reach out to DJI. I'll be reaching out to them as well because they need to be aware of this. Maybe this could be something firmware can fix and you don't have to send your drone in, or this could be a hardware issue. It's really tough to say. I'm leaning more that this could be firmware. I'm hoping it's firmware because it would really suck to have to send it into them to get replaced over something as silly as this. It's weird because you think if it was firmware, it would be happening on a wider spread of drones. I even looked to make sure it wasn't stuck in FPV mode, which wouldn't make sense because FPV mode is a lot more dramatic. It definitely was in the follow mode on all of these tests because that was the first thing I said. I said I've had it where the gimbal defaults to FPV mode, but it wasn't in FPV mode. It was in the standard mode and it was still happening. So if you're experiencing horizon tilt with your Mavic 3, leave a comment down below. I would love to know if you're having this problem because it's driving me crazy. I'm literally not flying the Cine version, and I rather fly the Rec drone because at least the Rec drone had a level horizon for the most part. For the very most part, it had a level horizon, but it's unacceptable at this price point to have problems like this. And can't make excuses for companies like this because above all the companies, this one should have had the most perfected product when it was released, simply because it was in a wide array of hands of creators for about a month's time prior to releasing. So if there was anything that needed to be cleaned up, that was their time to do so. Now, with that said, I do have the most amount of confidence that they can rectify this problem simply because they do have the resources. But I just thought I would bring this to your attention in case if you're experiencing horizon tilt. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Stay original.
Heard they checking for me, no one checking on me, so I had to go run up a check. I got the message on me, ain't no flexing on me, my attorney gon' call and collect. Blessings on blessings for me, my successes only made them envious, they got upset. I had to put all their egos in check. I want the money, the power.